That's the 36 car. And 32 and 22. United Autosports first and second ahead of Jota Sport. Top of your timing pile on the number 31 car. Fourth place for Panis Racing. G-Drive 26 in fifth. And 39, the Graf Racing entry in sixth position. Then this battle, Cool Racing versus Dragon Speed. And in terms of outright pace, Ben Hanley should have this. The car is quite quick enough to make this pass straightforward or not remains to be seen.
Of course, the 42 car is the car with Nicolas Lapierre in. Winner last 4 years in P2. A lot of work to do if he's going to win again from seventh place in P2.
Yeah, well, he's won on his last 4 outings, but not 4 consecutive years. And there goes Ben Hanley, goes straight by on the exit of Arnage. So he moves up a spot, and he is now into 7th place in LMP2. And the gap is nearly 2 minutes to Charles Milesi in the Graf Racing entry in 6th, minute 51 behind Milesi. Now, ahead of them is the Nico Jama Jean-Eric Verne battle for 4th. The Panis Racing car 1.6, make that now 1.9 seconds ahead of the G-Drive number 26. Big lock-up, and somebody goes straight through the chicane. Looked like Porsche headlights. Or was he just going into the pit lane a little over-ambitiously? Or did he lock up, go through the chicane, and then head into the pit lane? We'll wait and see who appears in the pits. Ricardo Pera in the 77 Dempsey Proton car from 3rd in GTE AM is freshly into the pit lane. I wonder if that was him. Or Eurasia's Nick Foster, who is also in the pits in LMP2. Did look like a Porsche, though. If our director can jump forward a little, the Panis Racing G-Drive battle up the road from these guys, 2 minutes ahead, is just 1.6 seconds apart. And Jean-Eric Verne chasing Nico Jama. This battle is done. Ben Hanley's gone by. They need to be looking down towards Arnage for the battle in front. Meanwhile, just to recap, as we get to 5 AM Central European summertime, 9.5 hours remain in the Le Mans 24 hours. And your leaderboard from the top of the pile, number 8 Toyota leads. It was a lap behind when Ben Constanduros went to bed. It is now a lap in front, not of its sister car, but of the number 1 Rebellion. Norman Nato is in 2nd. Louis Delatraz is in 3rd in the number 3 Rebellion. That is 3 laps off the lead. The Rebellion number 1 is 1 lap off the lead. 6 laps behind the leaders is the number 7 Toyota Gazoo Racing entry. Jose Maria Lopez is at the wheel. It had a 30-minute pit stop for a change of the right-hand turbocharger about an hour and a half ago. Lost the lead, and it would seem any chance perhaps even of a podium. It has, however, opened up 1 more lap over the LMP2 leader, which is 5th overall. That's Alex Brundle. There's been a swing in the balance of power. The 32 car now ahead of 22 by nearly 20 seconds. United Autosport 1-2. Jota Sport in 3rd place in LMP2, ahead of the close battle between Panis and G-Drive, with Graf in 6th position. The AF Corsa 51 Ferrari has got supremacy back over the 97 Aston Martin in the GTE Pro class, and those cars remain a lap ahead of the 3rd placed Aston Martin of Nicky Thiem. He is a lap ahead of the 91 Porsche in 4th, with AF Corsa's Miguel Molinar, the 71 car, coming up the order into 5th position, as Risi Competizione slumped a little down the order into 6th. The much delayed 92 Porsche is way behind, 44th overall compared to 29th of the Risi competition car, and the WeatherTech Ferrari that was clattered off the road by Nick de Vries in the Racing Team Netherlands LMP2 car is in the garage and has been for 30 minutes or so after spending nearly half an hour in the gravel trap waiting to be rescued from Arnage, and it seems that that car may not reappear. In the GT Am class, it's been an Aston Martin battle for the last 6 hours. 98 AMR and 90 TF Sport cars battling each other. Johnny Adam now ahead in the TF Sport car as it has once more regained the upper hand over the 98 car. In third place, Team Project One now, ahead of AF Corsa, so the 56 car ahead of the 83 car, and 77, having just stopped, has dropped from third down to fifth place. Those cars covered by about a minute as they battle for third, but they are a little behind the Aston Martin duos out front. So recently we have, it seems, lost the WeatherTech 63 Ferrari. The 37 Jackie Chan DC racing car was excluded for receiving outside assistance when it stopped when Gabriel Aubry was driving it in the lead of LMP2. The number 16 G-Drive by Algarve car eventually had far too many problems to continue and has been retired. 30 Duquesne car, Tristan Gombary, had a huge accident at the first chicane on the Mulsanne Straight, a 3-car incident involving, he reckons, the 31 car, and we know the 22 United Autosports car was there as well, so the 31 Panis car, but not sure where the incident started. It ended with the Duquesne car out of the race. Tristan Gombary was okay, as was Bruno Spengler when the rear wheel fell off the Bicoles car. The number 4 car then dragged back to the pits and into retirement. 33 high class has been more trouble than any car has a right to be and has eventually been retired. The 52 car, Alexander West, had a big crash in the Porsche curves, writing off the AF Corsa Am entry, or that AF Corsa Am entry. Matt Griffin in the Spirit of Race Ferrari, after Duncan Cameron was tubbed off the road by a rival in an LMP2 car. It came into the pits, had substantial rebuild, went back out, and was clearly not drivable. That car was a retirement, and our first retirement of the race, the Euro International number 11 LMP2 car, just rolled to a halt dead stick under Eric Maris and never made it past the Forest S's. So those are our retirements, and our one exclusion. Potentially added to the list of retirees is the WeatherTech Racing Ferrari. And for me, that is it for a few moments. And Ben Constanduras will lead you through the next few hours.
And to add, unfortunately, to that retirement list, Dragon Speed 21 with a misfire that is uncurable, and therefore they have pulled the garage doors down on that car. They still have another machine, though, in the 27 machine, sitting 7th in LMP2 right now. Ben Hanley aboard that car, but what a shame to lose Juan Pablo Montoya's vehicle, and that, as they say in their tweet, we don't have many problems with the LMP2 cars, but today we've had them all.
Hot news. Martin has just overtaken Pierre Guidi for the lead in GT Pro. He did it at the second chicane under the braking and has been pretty quick over the last few laps.
His average lap time is down in 3:51.7, whereas Pierre Guidi 3:54.2.
Yeah.
So he's always quick in these difficult conditions, isn't he? Wet or dark, exceedingly quick driver.
And you know what? That air is incredibly thick at the moment. You really can feel there's a lot of humidity in the air. The weather that we were expecting seems yet to have arrived, although some radars might suggest that in an hour's time we'll get a little bit of rain. Others are saying no rain at all, which means I need to find a hat to eat, because I was pretty sure we were going to see some kind of rain.
Jamie Campbell radar, he's said that it's not coming till 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So.
Or this morning.
This morning.
This morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Tomorrow, yeah, when it's light. Yeah.
In about
The
4
morning
hours.
light
In about
thing,
4
yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
He's pulling away up. He's definitely quicker, and is pulling away.
The difference, of course, is that Maxime Martin is on fresher tyres. First stint on these tyres, whereas Alessandro Pierguidi, second stint for his tyre.
You can see the best laps on screen, literally a tenth apart between the two cars. Last lap's a little bit different, nearly 2 seconds, but as Peter just explained, there is a tyre life difference between the two cars, and it's ebbing and flowing between these two as the race is going on. They're never more than 5 or 10 seconds apart, and it's actually been the battle of the race. The other battle of the race has been the two United cars, the Jota car in P3 with Antonio Felix da Costa at the wheel is now 1 minute and 32 behind. He had to make an extra pit stop for a seatbelt problem. Alex Brundle has done a stonking job in the night here. He's pulled a 17-second gap over Albuquerque, and but this is the battle to watch, really, the battle between Maxime Martin and Alessandro Pierguidi.
Tricky one for Guidi. He's seen his lead, which was quite a few seconds, disappear, and he will have been informed on the radio that Maxime Martin was coming, and coming quickly, and now he's just watching him drive up the road. So he probably 7 laps into his stint, so he's halfway through his stint right now. He's probably looking forward to getting out of this car and handing it over to his teammate.
We were checking in with the battle for 4th position between Panis Racing and G-Drive Racing, but Jean-Eric Verne has brought the 26 car into pit lane. There he is. So, in fact, the car that was following those two, I think, was the Racing Team Netherlands car, which can run at the pace of the leaders, but has a decent deficit now to the head of the pack, having had issues early on. It's something like 13 laps now. And therefore a service for the 26.
That's a driver. He's just got out the car, so he's sitting on the pit wall, actually.
Yeah, he quickly jumped out and got over to the pit wall. And that was Jean-Eric Verne out of the car. Now for a tyre service. This is a full, longer pit stop for the G-Drive machine. Andrea Bellicchi also in pit lane. Oh, you've got to look over your shoulder to make sure you don't pull out in front of another car. Luckily,
he stalled.
He stalled, yeah. Otherwise, that could have been a bit more messy. There is Bellicchi just pulling into his stall. So driver change, tyre change for G-Drive Racing. The only one left, with the Algarve car retiring out of the race. Roman Rusinov back aboard that machine and continuing to claw back the deficit that they had a few hours ago. It was Roman Rusinov who was aboard the car when it had a sensor issue that simply wouldn't allow it to do a full lap without cutting out. He did 2 laps like that rather than coming into the pits after the first lap. And after 6 minutes, they managed to change the sensor, the throttle sensor that was stopping them from continuing at full power. Fixed back out on circuit, and since then has just been trying to get back onto terms with our leading cars, but still a lap deficit between the front 3 and then 4th placed Panis Racing, and that was really down to the safety cars that we had 4 or 5 hours ago. 2nd position for this car, number 1. Rebellion Racing now heading back out the circuit. Pachito Lopez bringing the 7 into pits as Norman Nato exits pit lane. Really thought it was going to be this car's year when I went to bed a few hours ago.
But it's not over yet,
It's not over yet, no.
9 hours, 17 minutes to go.
And that, whilst you were catching up on your beauty sleep, the number 8 car had a moment after a safety car period with a again, a lot of smoke coming out of the back of it as it exited the Ford chicane, more than we've seen previously. So, yeah, half an hour, or no, a good 40 minutes, wasn't it, lost in the pit lane for the number 7 Toyota, and the number 8 car has had a tricky run in the beginning, didn't it? They had some problems, but since then a pretty reliable run. Actually, both Rebellions have been incredibly reliable, haven't they?
Jumping aboard the 22. Philippe Albuquerque was vocal at the start of the race, and here he is on the radio now to his team. Something in my face, I can't something anymore.
Something loose at my feet.
Loose at my feet.
Yep.
You guys can hear this radio way better than mine. I need to set my my panel up a bit better. Something at my feet, I can't drive it anymore, was the message. The pace is still good though, although, okay, lost a couple of seconds on that last lap to Alex Brundle. What's he in sort of stint lengths? Is he midway through his stint, or has he got a few laps to go?
38. He is near the end of his stint, so I think he's probably going to pit this lap.
Is this his 3rd stint, I think?
No.
Second. Right.
So ideally, they would be looking to triple or quadruple stint, but to fix anything that's in the pedal box, we'll need somebody.
Of course, this is the car, isn't it, that made an unscheduled. He did 1 lap. He got in the car, did 1 lap, and had to stop because he had a belt issue.
No, that was Da Costa. That was Da Costa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, into the pits comes the 22, so we'll have an opportunity to see what they do about this thing in the pedal box.
There'll be a mechanic that sticks his head down into the cockpit and with a torch and digs it out. So both cars in for the United team. Brundle has finished his stint.
Now, usually United wouldn't do that because you can see how close they are, but the 22 pulling in behind the 32, and actually you can see the 37 is the next garage along, and that isn't a retiree, so that's suddenly given them a little bit more space.
So
They've done it for the last 3 stops that I've seen anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the mechanic changing the bottle, he's stuck his head in the passenger side and he's pulled whatever was in there out. Fuel's still going in. The 32 car is doing tyres, which the 22 won't do, I don't think, because he's only done 2 stints. So going to have to push him back. There we go. And putting some oil or something in the 32.
Didn't feel like that they went down into the bottom of the footwell and picked out whatever was troubling him.
He went in from the passenger side.
Okay. Back out on the circuit then.
22 takes the lead.
For how long though? Because
well, no, the 32 did tyres, whereas 22 hasn't.
Well,
so.
I'm thinking that with those fresh tyres, and if Van Uitert can get up to speed quickly, did I say that correctly? Then he's going to be knocking on his door pretty soon, I would think.
Luckily for Ben, his favourite driver in the field is not in the car at the moment, so there won't be any issues there.
He wanted to be the most unpronounceable driver in Le Mans history, and he's getting his wish, from me at least. Mr. Vittekorn in the 99 Dempsey Proton is who we're talking about, as the Jota Solik sponsored machine gets a bit of a service. Very, very dirty, that car.
This was the car that made an unscheduled stop for a belt issue.
Also had a slow puncture, and before I went to bed also did a 5-lap stint as well for something I don't think we ever got to the bottom of. So it hasn't been straightforward for Jota. Remember, they are running on Goodyear tyres, as opposed to United Autosport on the Michelin. Goodyear, a brand new tyre. whereas the Michelin much more well-versed at the Le Mans 24 Hours, and everybody will be using Goodyears next year. But this year, a fact-finding mission for Goodyear, but of course for Jota, they're desperate to take the victory. That's an interesting... Okay, there's a little bit of physio going on there. It just looked like they were pushing each other around.
Tired mechanics.
Yeah, remember these boys don't get a chance to do a 3 or 4 hour stint off. They have to be up every, effectively, 40 minutes for a pit stop to an hour if you're a GT car. They don't get the chance for a couple of hours off, like we do in the commentary box, or the drivers do as well.
Very bright in this car, isn't it?
It's very blue.
Yeah.
Now, as McNish was explaining, this is night light, so it doesn't affect your eyes as a normal, traditional light would. I just don't really know why you need all that light.
It's so that you can see things.
The buttons.
Well, the buttons are all backlit on the steering, but it's just little things like the map above their head. There'll be maybe some fuses in places, brake balance, other things that are not backlit, so that the driver can see. It looks brighter, I think, on the screen. It is a blue light. And people that know about blue light glasses, it doesn't affect your eyesight and doesn't give you that tiredness. And it is behind their eyes. It's not in front of them. You know, it's behind their helmet, lighting up the dash. Most of these dashes and wheels as well have a little knob which has got a plus and a minus, and you can change the brightness of everything as well. So it's like a dimmer switch.
Here we go then. United versus United for the lead in LMP2 at this moment in time.
New tyres versus old tyres. So car in the front's got used tyres, Albuquerque, and the car behind, the 32 car, brand new tyres, new driver in the car.
Now, what you don't want them to do is be fighting too hard and slow each other up. There would be, presumably at this point in time, knowing that they're on different strategies, Philippe Albuquerque will be told, just let him go. Your time will come later on when you get the new tyre.
It could happen right here as well.
Yeah, I mean, there shouldn't really be a fight, should it? As teammates. One lump of light comes down towards Mulsanne 1, towing each other down towards the chicane. To the inside comes Job van Uitert, and that will be position taken by the Dutchman and into the lead of LMP2 once more. Now he'll drive away, and Philippe Albuquerque will once again get frustrated, as we've heard 2 or 3 times already in this race, when he expects to be the outright disappearing leader.
Well, all he can do now is try and hold on as much as he can to the back of that car in front, and, you know, just do a nice, stable stint. This race will come back to them when the positions are reversed and that car's on new tyres. He will get out of the car after this stint as well, I think. Let me just check that.
That's the Panis car, Panis racing car. Nicolas Jamin exiting the pit lane. It's currently in P4.
Had a detention from G-Drive before G-Drive came into the pits. They did a full service in G-Drive with Roman Rusinov now aboard, but it'll be interesting to see where Nicolas Jamin comes out in relation to that car, because they were locked together pre-pit stop. Now, there is the G-Drive. That's behind, isn't it? There's certainly one camera shot behind, if not 2 or 3.
31 is, he's just exiting Tête Rouge, and the G-Drive car is this car coming down into the S's.
Yeah, so 20 seconds is the gap. A longer pit stop from G-Drive Racing because of full service. That was about 11 seconds longer. And Nicolas Jamin has been able to retain the lead and give a healthy advantage to himself for the moment. See how Roman Rusinov's pace is in that car, on new tyres, of course, on this particular stint.
gap between Martin and Pierre Guidi, 2.5 seconds.
I'm surprised.
Oh, that's
Big
a
lock-up.
huge lock-up. Oh, is that the one we saw? I think we've seen that.
No, that's a new one. There was a puncture, wasn't there, on one of the cars?
That's Eurasia with Roberto Meri aboard the wheel, some point Formula One driver.
Sophia Flores exiting the pits after one of her stops. I think this is her second stint.
Yeah, and they're doing a great job still. P12 right now for that car as Sam Bird gets himself prepared. Now that's had an issue, hasn't it? Because that sits behind the Porsche of Richard Lietz now, and it used to be fighting for the lead. So do we know what happened to 71? Anybody awake? Puncture and Mulsanne at 1:30 in the morning, and that cost them 7.5 minutes in the pits, and obviously a very long journey to the pits as well. Let's go back on board with Philippe Albuquerque. Is he getting frustrated? There we go. So being informed that the 32 has new tyres and let him go, don't fight him.
He was saying he has oil, and you can see it on his screen.
Yeah.
It's spraying out oil all over his screen.
Through the first chicane here.
It looks like rain. It's really
horrible, isn't it?
And you know, the last thing he wants to do is put his wiper on. So he's just got to drive the car like that for pretty much a full stint. So he, as I said before, he is in his last stint in that car, his fourth stint. His tyres are now pretty old, and now he has a windscreen full of oil. So he will be quite keen to get out at the end of this.
Yeah, wow. Triple stint in the depth of night.
Quad stint.
Quad stint.
I think so, yeah.
And the tyres are doing doubles?
At least doubles, if not. Yeah, I guess they are doing doubles.
We did see earlier on the race triple stints, didn't we, from some of the LMP2 tyres?
But they might be doing quadruples now.
Yeah.
With the cooler.
I think it's the GT cars that aren't allowed
to. Yeah.
They have to only do doubles with the tyres, and therefore, normally you would get the GT drivers doing at least 3 stints in the night, but they're all only doing 2 because they have to change tyres. Whereas these guys can do 4, and therefore they get a longer rest when they get out of the car.
So a little bit of concern therefore on the 32 machine, with Albuquerque reporting oil coming out the back. We've got a slow car on the Mulsanne straight, and that is Charlie Hollings aboard the Red River Sport Ferrari with a rear right puncture on the Mulsanne. So a long way to get home. He needs to be careful with that car to not let it delaminate. There he is. It's already slightly damaged the diffuser, isn't it?
I'm not sure you saw that, Ben, but that car at around about 4:40, so about half an hour ago or so, Charlie had a massive off at the first chicane, smashed into the tyres, and brought them onto the track. So we had a long yellow zone, slow zone, and he got the car back, got it fixed, went back out, and now he has a problem on the other side of the car, because it was the left side that he had the damage on.
That's a long journey back to the pits.
In fact, looking at Alan's notes here, so Johnny Molem's had a problem. Hollings has already had a big spin at Porsche curves, and a second spin at the chicane. So
no, he's had 3. He's been off at the Porsche curves, he's been off at Mulsanne, and he's been off at the first chicane. And I think Johnny had an off somewhere. So actually it's a bit strange, because it's the 2 more professional drivers, let's say,
that are having the issues.
Well, presumably Bonamy Grimes at the moment is having some sleep.
Let me have a little look through and see
He will have...
when he last went in the car.
Yeah, they would have tried to keep him out of the car as much as possible in the trickier conditions. It's not possible for him to completely avoid the darkness, I don't think. Just simply how the rules sit and the amount of darkness we have on this September version of the Le Mans 24 Hours, that you will have to drive your third driver at some point at night.
You're absolutely right. On the screen in front of me, I've got Charlie Hollings, Charlie Hollings, Charlie Hollings, triple, Johnny Molem, Johnny Molem, Johnny Molem, Johnny Molem. He did 4 actually, or 4.5, 3.5. Charlie Hollings, Charlie Hollings. So Charlie's due to stay in the car at least for one more stint after this. So it could be that they're a bit fatigued, and that's why we're having the issues.
The other battle, which was the top 2 cars, 2 Aston Martins, TF Sport and Aston Martin Racing. Charlie Eastwood, been in the car quite a while now. Paul Della Lana dropping down away from Charlie. 38 seconds now, the gap. Paul's actually doing a rather good job, because I don't think I've seen Paul Della Lana make any mistakes. So nearly won the race a couple of years ago. He was leading by a good lap, I think, and unfortunately hit the wall at the Ford chicane. I don't want to give him the curse, but that's a great battle between two Astons there. And then we still have the battle of the 2 pro cars between Alessandro Pierguidi and Maxime Martin. The gap has opened up to a minute, but Maxime is on his out lap, so I think they're slightly out of sync. And then the gap between the 2 LMP2 leaders, the 2 United Autosports cars, just 5 seconds. The 2 United
It's a good
Autosports
moment
cars,
to
just
say
5
hello
seconds.
to you guys if you are on Twitter
It's a good
around
moment
the world. There are, of course, many of you listening to us in different time zones. Just whilst we sound a little sleepy, perhaps, you might be in the middle of your day. But please come and say hello to us on Twitter, at Ben Constey for myself, at Lovejoy for Peter Dumbreck. And which handle do you want to be using, Jamie, or are you not on Twitter?
I'm on, yes, I'm on J. Campbell Walter, I think.
You think? Using it a lot, Mr. Campbell Walter, then. But do ask us questions. We'll do our best to answer those questions. It's always a good moment, I think, in 24-hour racing to have a chat and define the finer points as we go through the remainder of the night. We've still got about 2 hours of night officially. Sun comes up at 7:43. And it will obviously get a little bit lighter before that point. Out there right now, as Ritzy take a bit of a break and literally snatch half an hour's sleep before their next stint. Yellow flag flying at the first chicane as Charlie Hollings has managed to get Red River Sport back to the pits. The tyre is just about still together, but he's done a good job not to completely destroy the rear end on that, because it's very, very close to falling apart.
Yeah, tricky one when you have a puncture. If you drive too fast, the tyre delaminates, and if it starts disintegrating and flapping around, it just destroys the bodywork, the floor, the diffuser, can do the rear wing, especially on a rear tyre. And the tyre only takes a matter of seconds to change, whereas the whole rear end of the car, the floor, the bodywork, etc., can take a good 20 minutes.
There is the evidence and remnants of the accident that befell the car a few hours ago. Absolutely destroyed that rear left panel. Lots and lots of duct tape. The car looking very, very second-hand. It had a huge frontal impact in the night, finishing actually our free practice session on Thursday evening. So they rebuilt the whole front end of that car across the night and across Friday, actually.
Those mechanics have worked pretty hard
already,
so
yeah.
Between them and the IDEC mechanics, I would say those teams have done the most work to their cars.
A question on the Car 70, which is MR Racing. That retired when I was still awake, but I have not remembered why. Left front suspension failure for that car. So T-Burn 21, there is your answer. Garage door down, it is out the race, and it had left front suspension failure on that car. Yellow flag now is down at the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. So we don't know what the yellow flag was for at the first chicane, which came out a few minutes ago. It cleared pretty quickly. This one seems to be hanging around a bit more, and that is the reason why. It is the graph car of James Allen pointing the wrong direction. Let's see why. Oh, just lost it.
That car was leading, if we think back to the beginning of the race.
Yeah. And James Allen was aboard that car when it was a leading. It did a great job, he did, to hold off some incredibly experienced competitors. Really ruffled the feathers of Felipe Albuquerque, who just simply expected for it not to be there when they were fighting in the first couple of hours. But now, with the cycle of drivers in that car, you know, it's an endurance race with 3 drivers of 3 separate talents and speeds and feelings. Back in with James Allen now. A little mistake, but it didn't cost him too much. He'll carry on with that. And that is actually on a new tyre as well. So I don't know if he's just come out the pits or it's been a couple of laps, but his last pit stop was a full service.
Richard Leitz running 4th in GT Pro. Porsche not really had the pace last lap, 3:54. Leader's last lap was 3:52. So still the Porsche struggling. I think it tends to be their straight line speed, maybe the speed out of the corners. Ferrari and Aston Martin pretty level, swapping position it seems every pit stop.
There was a bit of speculation early on that some of the cars that were struggling with straight line speed carrying a bit more downforce, perhaps aiming for the wetter conditions in the race, and that was going to help them with stability when we got the rain. But for the moment, Porsche's weather forecast says no rain at all.
So you're actually seeing the lights of the second place car ahead, but Richard Leitz is a good couple of laps down. Or at least 1 lap down. Yeah, a couple of laps.
Yeah, 2 laps, yeah. Pitches the car into the first part of the Porsche curves. That's the most fierce, most fearing part of it, because the barrier there with no runoff area. We saw Alexander West go heavy into that wall. Thomas Laurent nearly did in the Signatech, but
it's probably my favourite part of the circuit. That it's fantastic to drive so quick through there. Of course, it used to be a lot more narrow. You used to really feel constricted by the walls, but gradually, as time's gone on and safety measures have improved, the walls have been moved a little bit further back. If you remember, there's been some massive crashes through there as well. Loic Duval in the Audi springs to mind. When was that? 4 or 5 years ago? In practice, so we never got a clear video of it. Mr. McNish has seen one privately from the Commissaire Race Control camera, but there were no cameras at that point of circuit to capture Loic's crash. Mr. McNish has crashed through there. I remember in 2012, and I thought, oh, great. I don't want to wish bad on Mr. McNish because I knew he was okay, but I thought, all right, because I was in the same race, and I thought, all right, we'll pick up a position on him here. They got that Audi back, they repaired the car in about 10 minutes, and they still kept the lead over us as we were in a privateer P1 car. Hello to Australia, Bunbury in Western Australia, Finley. Is still with us. Plenty of you in the much more civilized time zones right now. Michael Zed, he's in Australia after just 3 hours of sleep.
What was the I'm afraid we're not going to be able to answer your question, but once Graham Goodwin comes back into the box, we'll get that answer. When was the last time was a car got disqualified for outside assistance? The tricky one, actually, we're talking about the 37 car that got restarted by the marshals. And they fixed the car, having had major electrical issues.
Well, he'd been handed something from outside the circuit, hadn't he?
Was that the reason why?
Had given him a part or something to help get the car going, to get it back to the pits.
Yeah.
And been spotted doing that, and then they got disqualified.
You can have advice, but you can't have parts or tools.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, all these cars will have a tiny little toolkit in them, which will be a little bag rolled up, screwdriver, maybe a little hammer, a couple of spanners. There's also a little special tool which unclips the bodywork, and sometimes when you have a contact with the wall, you might have dislodged your front end or rear end. Here you can see them here. To change it, there's a couple of clips above the front wheels, and then those two tools that go in, that comes off, and then the new one goes on. You see the tools in the top there. Once it's located into the tub, and it's a very quick change.
Didn't look like the 3 car had any damage to the nose of its car. It may well be that there's a slightly different setup on that nose.
The drivers could have been complaining of setup, and they just decided to make some changes, some downforce changes on board with the 22. Now, we saw the 32. It's just come back out of the pits. That was not a scheduled stop. He's only done 6 laps. And as we know, we can do 10 laps in a stint with these cars. So 22 takes the lead again.
A lot of oil on that screen, isn't there?
Yeah, we heard him a few laps ago complaining about it.
And maybe that's why they stopped.
Yes, because the oil was being thrown out by the 32 car as he went by the 22 car.
Yeah.
Didn't see any kind of top-up going on, though, on that pit stop. But we cut to it slightly later, perhaps, when maybe an extra bit of servicing had already been done. We've got Hayley Evans back in the pit lane, so she will go and investigate. And here is the radio from Philippe Albuquerque, who's now back in the lead of the race, but probably struggling with vision.
Screen is really bad, I think he said.
You can see that, can't you? It's a right mess. And it really will be blurring his vision. It looks awful from where we are.
It won't be quite as bad as the camera always makes it seem a bit worse, but yeah, that's not going to be very pleasant to drive like that, and you know, it takes a bit of getting used to.
You know the situation when you've been driving through the continent, it's been a hot day, you've got plenty of bugs all over your windscreen, and then somebody hits the windscreen wiper and smears it across the screen, and it just is horrible until you can get into a service station and give it a proper scrub.
I tell you what, it'd be an absolute nightmare for him if it started to rain.
Oh yeah.
Absolute nightmare. Oil and water on a windscreen, he would not be able to turn his wiper on. And lots of rookies, something that you never really think of because it's not something in the book, but a rookie would turn his wiper on and I can't see anything. So it's...
And you're talking about bits that the cars will carry. Back in your day, you carried mobile phones even when mobile phones weren't a thing.
Well, I think they still do because they carry 2 things: a phone and a longer, or it's an extension of their radio kit. So you see them plugging in the pit stops. There's an extension so that they can remain on the radio and walk around the car with a sort of 3 or 4 meter curly-whirly telephone cable type thing, and they can receive instructions then on their headset.
Let's go down into Kazuki Nakijima's 8 Toyota, leading the race by a lap. Okay, coming into the pits. Pit confirm. Now, what is pit confirm? We always hear it in all different forms of racing. He's being told that he's coming into the pits, but he has to send a signal back to the engineers?
Just to confirm you've heard the message.
Okay.
That's all it is.
It's simply a signal to say, I'm good, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, so they'll say box this lap, and they expect, if they don't get a response within a
few seconds,
5 seconds or something, they'll repeat it again.
Yeah. So maybe this is more of a clue as to what they might do to the car. Maximize kinetic. And then Kazuki saying, I'm in the pits already. Here he comes then, the leader of this 24 hours of Le Mans with over 15 hours gone. And this will be a potentially full service.
Well, Kazuki's halfway through his stint at the moment. He's done 2 stints. He's going to do another 2.
Okay.
11 laps per stint.
There are tyres sitting on the apron, but whether they actually end up on the car, we'll have to wait and see.
You'll find there'll always be a set there just in case.
Yeah, if they spot something on the tyre that the driver didn't feel.
There we go.
Getting tyres.
So a double stint on those Michelins, and is it going to be a full set? We've seen some teams doing just left sides.
That's been only really the Porsche, hasn't it? The GT Pro Porsches. You often see every stop, if they're not planning to change tyres, a Michelin man or a Goodyear man will go around looking top of those big holes and maybe take temperatures with a little probe, and they give the thumbs up, which means you don't have to change it. And they do that whilst the fuel's going in, of course.
For the number 8 car, there's no point in taking any risk.
No, exactly.
You know, they've got enough tyres, they may as well use them.
But it was a 120 stop, so that seems quite fast for a full tyre service. And I think we only saw the left side tyres being done there. Now, a tyre graphic will confirm once it gets updated with all the information that it picks up when those cars leave the pits. Although it has been wrong already. We did have a look earlier on, and it suggested that they had an issue with the front left, but the team confirming that they had not. On board with Signatech Alpine. And now they were locked in a battle last time we checked with them, and at the moment they are 1 minute and 22 seconds off 8th position, with René van der Zande in the Dragon Speed 27 car in that position. They were battling with Cool Racing, but Antoine Borgo's got up to 7th position and Signatech down to 9th. So that was a couple of hours ago, mind you. Thank you very much to Desert Jester, who is joining us, and Philip Pond, who is also on the beers, keeping himself awake. Now, here's one for delving into your computer, Peter. Do we know how many hours the bronze drivers in GT Am have done from the top 5?
Let me have a look. So,
another one from Kaz as Peter works on his numbers. This one's an easy one for Jamie Campbell-Walter. What is the small canister they seem to pour into the car at sometimes during pit stops?
It's oil. So it's a pressurized canister, just for a quick fill, basically, rather than gravity. And they're just topping up the oil. So the engineers at the back of the pit garage will be, there'll be some guys from the engine department who will be keeping an eye on pressures, water pressure, oil pressure, and the minute they start to see a drop, these cars under high G loads in the Porsche curves, they will see a slight drop in the oil pressure. That is a sign that the car is slightly low on oil, and what they'll do is have preset determined sort of times more or less where they add the oil, and they're just putting in like half a litre to a litre. It's not very much.
Of course, the other bottles that are there is a driver drinks bottle that can be replaced as well You'll see on some of our onboard cameras, you can see the silver canister that gets replaced sometimes.
Right, I've got an answer to your question. You know, the only team that isn't really using its AM driver in GT AM at the moment is the leading car. Hence their big lead.
Yeah, so he's not wanting to drive in the dark. So they are going to be disadvantaged later on. And
that being Sally Ulick.
Yeah, and then Augusto Farfus and Ross Gunn will come into play.
Yeah, because Paul Dell'Anna, their gentleman driver, is in the car right now.
Yeah, and that car was leading, let's not forget. The Aston Martin Racing one of Dell'Anna was leading, now a minute and 32 behind. Dell'Anna is the bronze. So, and he's doing a great job. I mean, a 3:58 that lap is a respectable lap time. You know, this guy's a very wealthy businessman, good driver, nearly won the race. WEC champion, of course, as well, and sort of respected as one of the best bronzes actually in GT. So. He's pretty good, and he's a big lad as well.
Oh yes.
But he's a super nice guy and actually a very good driver.
On board with Paul Lafarge. Now that doesn't seem right to me. The strobing disco lights going on inside the IDEX Sport machine. Can't see exactly where that's coming from. It does look like it's coming from the front left, which usually would be a G sensor for if there was an impact on the car, it would turn on. So another stock part from the electronics manufacturer that is faulty. We saw it with Sophia Flörsch in practice. Her race control screen was flicking on and off, but that must be horrible for Lafarge to have that flashing consistently inside the cockpit, effectively in his eye line as well, Peter.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't enjoy that. I mean, once you focus outside the car in the distance, you're not seeing it so badly, but it certainly would have an effect.
Where's that flashing light coming from?
Well, I think it might be the automatic FIA safety sensor for if there's an impact of over a certain G. We saw it on the Alexander West Ferrari when he went into the wall. Comes on and basically tells the marshals that the car has experienced a high G-force. On board with Felipe Albuquerque. 45 seconds to the good now at the moment. And how is he getting on with that horrible screen?
Jesus Christ. Behind you. Oh, good. Where did he go? Oil. It is a big difference if it was stop now. Well, we should do one more if you can. Just do one more. Okay, there, do one more.
Felipe really sounds like he's desperate to get out of that car, doesn't he? End of a triple stint. A little confused as well as to where his opponent is.
Well, he didn't. Obviously, there was that unscheduled stop by the 32 car, and I don't think Felipe knew about it. So he thought the 32 was still in front of him.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, about engineers just keeping drivers informed. He's got no idea. He can't see the car.
Can't see much.
There's no information for him. And unless the team and the engineers inform him, your sister car's had a problem, he's pitted out of sync.
Oh, no!
Nearly tangled with a GT car, but...
and he's coming into the pits.
So he's got no idea. So he's just like, where are the other cars? Tell me. You're doing a great job, mate. You're in the lead.
So the engineer said as well, you should do one more if you can.
Yeah.
Sounds as though he's going to stay in for one more stint.
No, I think it was one more lap. He said, will it make a difference if I come in now? And the engineer said, you really should do one more if you can. Now, that message could have been replayed.
Could have been one lap ago. Yeah.
You can see if he's done the full stint of that.
He's unplugged his lid, so he's getting out.
And this, now look at the windscreen that desperately needs to be cleaned. This tear-off comes off.
That car has also got an internal flashing light.
That's a
So,
pink
yeah,
internal light, though.
Yeah.
Is that just for in the pits, though?
It did seem to come on when they hit the pit speed limiter.
Phil Hansen getting in. He's the silver driver in the car, but a very good one.
So yes, I remember Hansen getting in the car last time in the darkness.
Yeah.
So this is his second time of driving in the dark. We should see.
He's going to drive into the daylight.
He will drive into the daylight, which is a nice feeling.
Yes.
And it's uplifting because it's like, well, it feels like you've almost made it.
Yes.
You haven't, but it kind of has that feeling about it.
Well, daylight here at 7:30 and the race finishing is at 2:30. There's a much less race left.
When it is daylight, yeah.
once the sun
Normally
goes
it's sort
up.
of 5 in the morning, isn't it? And you've got to go till 3:30, so still a long way to go. But how long have we got? 8.5 hours to go. Bear in
that's
mind,
weird. That would be daylight in a usual June race.
Yep, we would be daylight now. 8.5 hours is still a WEC race, plus 2.5 hours to go, so anything can happen still.
Having a look at Jota doing a full service on the 38. They're the only other car, other than the two United Autosports machines, that are on the lead lap for LMP2. And they have had a few maladies, so they're slightly off touching distance right now. Tyres changed.
New Goodyears going on. Anthony Davidson getting in.
Really, really good feelings for Goodyear to know that they are well up there. Panis Racing also using the Goodyear tyre in 4th position. So despite being new to Le Mans, they are developing something which is equal, if not better, depending on the conditions, to the Michelin tyre already.
Yep, and right up there, able to pick up the pieces if United stumble. Jota and Panis, 3rd and 4th place.
Anthony Davidson with huge experience here at Le Mans in LMP1 for Peugeot, for Toyota. He's not taken an overall victory, though. He's missed that accolade, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been in two teams, 2 cars that really coulda, woulda, shoulda won it and didn't. So he's been unfortunate. He's, the years I remember him being super, super quick and just being that little bit unlucky, the car being unlucky, and him not getting the win.
First visited Le Mans in 2003, driving a GTS Pro Drive.
With Darren Turner, I believe. Yeah.
That would make sense.
In fact, Kelvin Burt was in that car as well.
Next, after his stint in Formula 1, 2009 for Aston Martin. And then joined Peugeot for their campaigns in 2010 and 11 before switching to Toyota in 2012. But
I think they're the eyes of James Hansen. Oh, the problem with that door.
oh yeah. Okay, so the first issue was that he got his glove stuck in the door, and then he wasn't massively confident that it was shut.
He's triple, double checking that.
And now 32 in again. Is that a full stint? That doesn't seem right, that they're back on to sync with each other.
Oh, Graham Goodwin's been over messing with my computer here.
Best result, by the way, for Anthony Davidson at Le Mans was P2 in 2013. He got one other podium, only one other podium at Le Mans. For all of that experience over those years, that's quite remarkable.
So that is, it does seem a bit strange. So he's done a 6 and a 5 lapper. So when he
6
came
and
in,
a 5.
probably to check that oil issue, they didn't refuel him.
Okay.
And they didn't give him any more tyres, and it was a quick in and out, and that is the resumption of his.
Yeah, but would you not? If you've gone and filled everything up, you brought the car into the pits, why don't you fill it up with fuel and at least do a full stint?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
So can they only do half a stint with the issue with this oil? Well, we're speculating about the issue with the oil. We saw it on Albuquerque's windscreen.
We'll know in 10 laps time.
Well, we'll know in 5 laps time if he has to come in again.
True, yeah.
And that's certainly one for Haley Edmonds in the pits to go and investigate if United are forthcoming with the information. But only able to do half a stint at the moment. Something that we saw from G-Drive by Algarve. That was a fuel pickup problem for them early on in the race. They have now retired, by the way. But concern then for what effectively is our class leader in LMP2 right now, but with all of these extra pit stops, is definitely handing the advantage to the 22 of Phil Hansen. At the moment they could manage it, and they do have a full lap advantage over Panis Racing in 4th position. So the 32 would only really lose 1 position if it had to do a slightly longer stop. But ultimately, if it is an oil leak is not an easy thing to fix, regardless of where it is.
Yeah, it all depends on what kind of oil it is. If it's oil from the engine, then yeah, we've got a problem. But it could be a fluid from another place. But we would see smoke out of the back of the car if it was oil from the engine. So it's probably not that.
Could have overfilled it, couldn't they, when they put oil in, maybe, and the oil's just come out the breather, because didn't they follow each other out the pit lane?
Yep.
And he had it for the whole stint, so...
Yes, but he's only done 2 5-lap stints since.
A 6 and a 5.
Haley was on her way to United, wasn't she?
I hope so.
Yeah. If she can hear us.
Well, there's one thing going to the garage, there's another thing getting information for the team. That's it's the second challenge. The easy bit is walking to the garage and poking your head in. The hard bit is asking the team to find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, she just said she's at Toyota, so we bit of fitness for her. She can go back up to United in a minute. Right, I've had a wonderful time with you guys. 4 hours on the mic, and I'm going to sleep.
No way.
Enjoy. Which means Graham Goodman joins us and we can get super technical with all of your questions
good
on
morning.
Twitter. That is a good morning to you, Graham. Let's go down to Haley, who has some information on Philippe Albuquerque out of the car. A little bit by the end seemed confused, Haley, because he was all over the place by the end of his stint.
That's correct, Ben. So I spoke to Felipe, and he said first stint absolutely fine, second stint same. However, in the third stint, it was actually his teammates in car number 32 that were actually losing oil. And he said it became dangerous out there, and he just wanted to get back in because he didn't feel safe. So that's the reason why. As we all know, there's a big United battle going on up front, but you know, he said he's just going to keep on pushing, and regardless of who is in front or behind him.
Yeah, the question mark is, though, is that an issue that can be managed or fixed at United Autosports for the 32 car? An issue for Philippe Albuquerque to have the oil on his windscreen. More concerning is if that's a problem with the 32 that's unfixable.
22.
32 has got the issue.
But Albuquerque's not in. Sorry.
Albuquerque was behind.
Oh, I see. My apologies. I heard
got covered
half
in
it.
oil.
Right.
Because he was directly behind coming out the pits and basically did a whole stint with his windscreen covered in oil. It was horrific.
Lovely.
And Haley's saying that he felt it was a bit dangerous at times.
He did complete it, though.
He did complete it.
I mean, he had a little bit of a reassurance needed from the pits that he really does need to complete this stint.
Yeah.
And, he did oblige. He's now out of the car. He can have a bit of a rest. Phil Hansen back in the car.
But, attention on United Autosports at the moment just to see if they can get that 32 car back to a full 10-lap stint rather than the 5 and the 6 that we've seen them do over the last 2 stints.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello there, Graham.
No, my apologies. I gather you may have heard on mic Jamie just briefing me on what's been going on for the 3 or 4 hours I've been attempting to sleep in a cardboard box.
Have you managed it?
What, sleeping in a cardboard box?
Yeah,
a little of that, but I think I've got my head around most of what's gone on. And pretty clearly it's been an eventful last 3 or 4 hours.
During the night, all business as usual. Watching stateside, well done, boys. Nightlife as in campsite fun?
I suspect it's that, because we talked, didn't we, in the night practice, Peter, about this lack of ambient light. Because we've not got some of the lighting at some of the corners, there's no fans out there in the campgrounds. So at certain parts of this track, the ambient light is less than they would have been expecting in previous years.
That's right. Yeah, it's all. Yeah, the whole race is that little bit darker this year. Yeah, it's a strange situation. I've kind of got used to it now that there's no, normally there's that big wheel sitting out there, isn't there?
Well, not there anymore. It's over down there.
But at this
you can
time,
see it out of our window.
At 6 a.m. in the morning, I would be expecting to walk into the booth and the sun's already up.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's just pitch black out there.
I've just realised something. We missed all the fireworks during the midnight hours. You usually get fans throwing fireworks from the campsites and illuminating the sky. And to the point that the lack of fans, we didn't have any fireworks. We had Bruno van der Sticks talking to the fans that weren't here, but we didn't get any ACO fireworks. We should have had them put some on.
The ambience. Where have we had fireworks this year?
Bahrain usually have fireworks at the end of the race.
There's been fireworks somewhere this year. It's too early to think about these things. But
I used to love those.
It's still got the atmosphere, waking up and walking back towards the track and noise levels rising. And always good that you're not hearing too many occasions when the track falls quiet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's always the time when you wake up, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel right when it goes quiet. There's been a question come in, quite an easy one to answer, actually. Can't find who's been asking it right now.
Easy for Graham, anyway.
No, Jeffrey Kanza says, who makes the decision on retirements? And you do have to lodge or declare your intention.
The god of racing luck.
Yeah. You have to declare that you are retiring. You can't just stop.
You do. There is paperwork that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And yes, OK, there's some visual clues, like a car coming in with no wheels on it, or, upside down and on fire. We've mercifully not had any of those. But the garage door down is a very visual clue. That team will not be rejoining the race. But there is paperwork that must be filed. And that's the point at which you will see the timing screens change, and we get retired against that. And I know we've been wrong-footed at least once during this race with the number 88 car, and the fantastic effort from Thomas Preining to get the car back from trackside after 3 hours. But yes, it is paperwork that's finally required.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
So the answer is team manager ultimately.
Thank you, Jeffrey Kanza, though.
Absolutely.
For asking the question twice as well.
Fee Miller reminds me, by the way, from the press room. Good morning, Fee. COTA. There apparently were some fireworks at COTA earlier this year, which was the last pre-lockdown race meeting that the WEC had before we came back to racing at Spa.
Also, Graham, can you remind us how many hours the ARM drivers need to do in the GT class?
I think it's 6. I think it's a minimum 6.
Jamie did think it was 6. So
I think it's 6 in every class. Now, I'll have a quick look. There is a very neat little graphic that I can drag out in a moment. That was what, by the way, I was so rudely peering over your shoulder earlier and trying to find out through the strategy laptop, and can't quite find the right button at the moment, but we'll grab that and sort out who's going to be short of them. Because the key to this, and one of the things we were just talking about off mic, was in the GTM class in particular, which gentlemen drivers have been basically pounding around here in the full darkness, and I gather Paul Dadalana has been doing a fine job of that.
So it's only really Sally Ulick that seems like he needs to get back in the car fairly soon to get some hours in. Which
therefore is going to just tip the balance in a different direction to maybe where we've been so far. And if we've got cars on the same lap, and we do.
So Ross Gunn has taken over the 98 car from Paul Dallalana. so he's on a very similar pace to Johnny Eastwood. I know Johnny Eastwood because he's the uncle of Charlie Eastwood, and I used to race against him in karts in 1986.
Good grief.
So it was strange for me to see the name Eastwood come through, and I thought, I wonder. And then I met his uncle at Goodwood with Charlie, and we remembered each other.
Motorsport is the most incredibly family-based tribal thing, and you find that constantly, don't you?
32, John Van Oetteren has just managed to do his fastest lap of the race so far, closing in on the 22 of Philip Hansen.
Okay, so the gap to you is 8 seconds. His last lap was 32.0.
Yeah, and it's no longer, is it 8 seconds? It's down to 7.3 now.
I'm not sure he wants to hear that, but well, he probably does want to hear it, but he wants to go a bit quicker himself, I'm sure. But you know, the important thing to do is to run your own race. They've both had their little issues through the race. They're both on different strategies.
Oh dear, we've got a onboard on the 22 car. We've got the old filmic effect of slightly wobbly cam. You can actually see it on the right-hand side there, just above the FIA screen, wobbling around and providing us a very cinematic wobble cam. Top Gear would be proud.
So the answer on minimum driving time with, as always, our thanks to Fiona Miller, is indeed 6 hours is the minimum, frankly, whichever class you are and whichever grade you are. Maximum driving time, that's actually 14 hours is maximum. Minimum time, 6.
So you could actually get away with 2 drivers if you ended up...
It's been done in extremis in the modern era from memory twice. Once was the Bicolis car, which was effectively Andre Lotterer's arrival on the scene. When one of his co-drivers fell off the pit wall on his way to the grid and dislocated his shoulder. So that meant that I think it was...
That was when they were running Audis, right?
That's right. That was Andre Lotterer, and I think Charles Wellsman Jr. was that year. And the other one was actually, well, rather oddly, it was...
I know what you're going to say, or if you're not going to say it, I'm going to tell you it. Because I do know this. It was Jeroen Blikkemolen was the driver, and Ben... No, who's the tall one that was his teammate?
What? In what car?
It was in an American...
It was a Pro Speed Porsche, and the option had to be taken. I think it was Brett Curtis had been injured in a shunt up at Dunlop, and they had to start with 2 drivers.
Yes.
I've got a feeling Cooper McNeil was one.
Cooper McNeil, you are right. And he's tall, isn't he?
Yes, he is, very tall.
There you go.
And they actually did pretty well. They ended up getting into the race. To do this, they had to put the car into GTE Pro, not GTAM. And to do that, because of the way the driving time worked, and I have a feeling they finished something like 5th in class.
Because I was looking through pictures on my phone, and I came across this picture of Jeroen Blikkemolen, and I took it before the race, and I said, I'm going to take a picture of you after the race, because you're going to be driving a lot of time in this race.
That's it, there you go, so it's spot on.
Another fastest lap for John Van Oetteren in 29.616.
Wow.
That might be one of the fastest laps we've seen from LMP2 overall.
We'll have a quick look at that on the laptop shortly as well.
But there is movement in the garage, and I don't think either car owes us at this point a pit stop unless they still have an issue with that 32 car, and he's got to come in for another oil top-up.
Well, all things being equal, I've found through this race, this duel, if you like, between Jan van Utertz and Phil Hansen is fascinating. They're the 2 silver drivers. There's a little bit of who's the daddy involved here at United Autosports. Jan van Utertz, first year with the team. Both he and Philip Hansen, undoubtedly at this stage in normal times, would end up being gold-ranked drivers.
Both hands off the wheel there for Phil. Yeah, he's playing around with his belts completely with no hands on the steering wheel. Let's hear what he has to say.
His last lap was a 29.6.
excuse the language, but Philip Hansen is a little surprised at the pace of the 32 behind. But look, the gloves are going on.
Yeah.
Now, what's he got in his hand? Got a drill in his hand. Here we are on board with the 22.
So Philip doesn't want to be rattled here. He can clearly see the lights getting closer.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to be rattled. 3.1 seconds, but one of those cars is coming into the pits in a second by the movement in the garage. And I'm going to guess, Peter, on your strategy laptop, that
that's 32. It has to be.
The 32's only done 5 or 6 laps.
32's done 4 laps.
And the 22?
5 laps.
Yeah, exactly. So neither are owed us a stop. There's something going on at United with the 32 car.
Regardless, though, Phil Hansen does not like the fact that his teammate is so much quicker on the same track. I don't know where they are tyre-wise. Well, no, Hansen's on new tyres. So, no, he's definitely rattled.
Oh.
Iron Lynx 75 smoking in the pit lane. Rino Mastronardi's brought that car in, and that does not look good.
No, it doesn't. That doesn't look good at all. Engine cover off. Never, ever a good thing in a 24-hour race.
Something is very, very hot in there. The driver is out of the car. There is no driver in the car. And it's going up on the hijacks by the looks of things.
Now, this is something we saw for a fair amount of before the Evo version of this car. There were some reliability issues with that turbo V8. But it's not wanting to go up on its jacks either, is it?
Well, the number 1 mechanic at the front of the car, making sure all the various jacks are in the right place before it goes on the hijacks. And I think the thumbs up was, let's get it up high. So that car is going to be spending a while in the garage by the looks of things. It's 15th position in GT Am as it comes into pit lane. Right, so United Autosports 32 going past the pits with a 1:30.5. That's 3 seconds faster than Philip Hansen, and on this lap they are going to be absolutely locked together. There they no, not there they are, not quite. That's the Dragon Speed car of René van der Zande in between them, but only 2 seconds separate the two cars. And if they keep chomping away at the gap like that, then by the end of this lap we'll have a change for the lead. But I'm still concerned about what's going on with that 32 car. Through first chicane goes Philip Hansen, and then into the first chicane comes Job van Uitert. The 2 United Autosport cars on the lead lap for LMP2, with Anthony Davidson in the Jota just under a minute behind these two after various little maladies at Jota. There is a comparison of the two. 6 laps for Philip Hansen, 5 laps for Job van Uitert. And one of the very few 329s that we've seen so far in this race from the LMP2 category. Through the traffic. Nice clear track ahead of Philip Hansen right now.
75 also reported for speeding in pit lane, which is unfortunate. I don't think that's the first time we've seen that from Rino Mastronardi either. But no, it's Claudio Schiavone, wasn't it? The 60 was much, much, much earlier in the race after the spin in front of us.
The question is,